Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. Listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location at Cards Against Humanity in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rye the Movie Guy, and sitting behind the glass is producer Pat.
Hey guys, how's it going?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we look back at the decade in horror.
Wow.
As we cover our top 5 favorite horror films of the decade.
Yeah, my wow may have sounded unenthusiastic, but it isn't. Wow. I mean it. Very excited for this topic.
We had been talking because this is the closing year of a decade. So we mentioned in meetings that we got to start doing our top 5 lists, maybe some genre picks of the decade, because we've been doing Cinemajaw this entire decade, which is crazy.
We have the actual perspective from this show to look back on. So that's very interesting.
So being October, we decided to kick off this, what we're calling our decade series, with our top 5 favorite horror films. So get thinking of those jawheads. The other interesting note here is we had to have a guest that was a horror fan.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And this particular guest, Matt, actually came back earlier this year, made his return to Cinemajaw, which was awesome. We had a blast. And at the end of it, he held us at knife point, and he said, "Put me on the horror show."
It was a very big knife.
Yes,
too. Yeah,
it
was
was
holding
very
it upside
big.
down like Michael Myers, right?
Or I'm going to make, a horror scene of Cinemajaw. And so we felt threatened. We had to have him back on. Matt, who do we got coming on?
Elliott Bambrough, host of Chicago's Best. He's also now working with Chicago Fire. We're going to talk about all that. Is back.
Yes,
excited
can't wait to talk about. Elliott, he's always excited to talk about movies, but I think he's extra excited to talk about horror films.
Right. Yes, this is his favorite genre.
Besides that, we have more going on, do we not, Pat?
We do. We are also going eye for an eye on Zombieland Doubletap.
And we have a review of The Laundromat.
Nice. Plus, because we are going eye for an eye on Zombieland Doubletap, I thought this is a good time for you to take Elliott on in Zombieland cast movie trivia.
Okay. It's a great cast.
It is.
Yeah.
Wonderful cast.
Are we talking cameos too?
We'll see.
Okay.
Everything's open here on Cinemajaw.
Everything's on the table.
Right. Plus, we're going to do some Hollywood headlines, Matt. Martin Scorsese, I know, made some comments.
Yeah, he really put his foot in his mouth. Or did he?
We'll go round robin on those and get our feel for where everybody sits with the Martin Scorsese.
I'm enjoying this segment, Hollywood headlines. It's great. Keep the jawheads informed.
I agree. It is a jam-packed jaw. Before we bring Elliott on, we are celebrating Jamie Lee Curtis this month.
Yes.
October, very fitting.
Naturally.
So we should start with a Jamie Lee Curtis fact. Pat, what do we got?
This week's Jamie Lee Curtis fact. Jamie has played what is perhaps her best-known character, Laurie Strode, of the Halloween series in films released in 5 different decades, from the 1970s to the 20-teens. Halloween 1978, Halloween 2 1981, Halloween H2O 1998, Halloween Resurrection 2002, and Halloween in 2018. Next year's Halloween Kills will begin her 6th decade playing Strode.
That's insane. Six decades playing that character.
That is nuts.
I
never thought about it spanning that long a time, but it has been.
78 Halloween, she was 19. So she got started early, but it's still, it speaks to the longevity of her career. So.
I don't know how I feel about it going on. I like the return that we just had.
It was fine.
But I would have been okay if that was really the end.
Well, hey, man, if there's money, they're going to go for it.
All right. As we mentioned, Elliott Bambrough, he is a host of Chicago's Best. He's been on the jaw 2 times prior, once earlier this year, but he insisted with a long knife in hand to come back to do a horror episode. Elliott, welcome back to Cinemajaw.
Happy Halloween!
Yes.
This is my Christmas.
Me too.
All right.
Hell yeah, man. Do you decorate? Do you go all out?
A little bit decorating. I think for me, it's more about the candy aspect, the excuse to watch double the amount of horror movies I normally watch, which is normally about 3 to 4 times a week anyway. So double up on that, and just be accepted for carrying around a machete around town. And not being looked at weird with like a severed head in the other hand.
Well, this time of year, you can upgrade from the machete to the chainsaw, you know?
That is an upgrade, but, I'm more of a traditionalist at this time of year. I'm like old school, very like indie type of horror fan. So I like to stick with a machete. It's a classier instrument.
I respect it.
Thank you.
There is a streaming service out there entitled Shudder.
There is.
Which it just streams horror films. Do you subscribe to this? Do you watch some of these movies on Shudder?
We can get onto a different subset about this with my issue with subscription services, which are basically turning into subscriptions on top of cable, which everyone has now been dumping because subscriptions on cable have become ridiculous and means you have to get a second mortgage.
Yeah.
When does the subscription service end? Disney are bringing one out. NBC are bringing one out. So everyone's bringing out all these new subscription services, and it's getting to the point where I'm starting to pick and choose what subscription services I have. And no, I don't have Shudder. For want of a better word, a long story short, I mean, I can get my horror fix pretty much everywhere else. Netflix is doing some incredible stuff right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, streaming services, other streaming services, even Redbox has some good stuff from time to time. So I get my fix in other places and back alleys in brown paper bags from the horror dealers.
I know we're going to be talking about the best of the decade, but generally speaking, do you go for the newer stuff or are you into the classics like you were saying?
My first horror gateway, my dad recorded Alien for me from TV on VHS when I was about 8 years old with the commercials on pause. So it had the little freeze frame of the graphic for the movie. So my entry into horror was like from the 1970s. From that, I went to Exorcist 2, The Heretic, because The Exorcist in the UK was still banned at the time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Pirate Copy. So my love for horror is spawned out of old school movies, like The Omen, like The Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the classics as I consider them. And whilst I do love, as we'll look through the last decade of movie, it's a really shriveling list for me as other genres kind of eke their way into the hemisphere of horror, and it becomes a little bit more art house in some areas that I find a little bit too tedious and don't heighten my horror senses and make me really excited. So it was tough to find this last decade, but yeah, I'm more of a classic kind of guy.
That's interesting.
I mentioned that you obviously are host of Chicago's Best, and I like that Chicago's Best is getting into the horror theme. You guys actually have sort of a Halloween special coming up,
yes,
right?
Guess whose idea that was?
It had to be yours.
It was my idea.
This is a good one.
This is really exciting. For people that don't know that are outside of Chicago, Jawheads are outside of Chicago, I host a food show here in Chicago. It's not so much a critique or a chef's point of view. We go to these areas and neighborhoods and we have fun. We celebrate mom and pop owned places, and we have a good time when we eat food and drink beer and just enjoy ourselves. So typically we just, do like burger themes or pizza themes or barbecue, whatever. And I've been trying to get this like Halloween themed episode for a while. So people, your fans around the world will be able to watch it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Chicago's Best TV. And it's going to be called Trick or Eat. So we're basing some what people would consider like fearful foods like grasshoppers, veal brains, calf livers, that kind of stuff.
Are you going to eat grasshoppers?
Dude, I ate them 2 days ago, and they are delicious.
Really?
And today I had veal brains and calf liver.
I have done that. Not veal, it was pork brains.
Yeah.
Which is gross, but I tried it.
It's only gross because you tell yourself it's gross. It's like the whole point of this episode as well is not just to gross people out. Half of it is because it's Halloween. The other half is to show like cultural heritage. Then there's a reason behind all the delicacies they eat. A lot of them are to do with not wasting any proteins. You don't butcher an animal and then throw away the bones. You use it as broth to make like soups and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's to show that they're culturally important, but also these things wouldn't be on menus at restaurants if they were disgusting. I love when people go and see a menu and they're like, ooh, that sounds disgusting. And the maitre d' or whoever comes out and says, yes, we put that on the menu and we buy that every week because we like to throw it out because it's disgusting. The food is good. If you take away what you think is gross and you think what sounds disgusting and try it first. Just like when you were a kid. Try it first and then tell me if you think it's gross or not.
So on that note, and you don't have to name a restaurant, but you've been doing Chicago's Best how many years now?
6 years
So
now. I'm
6
approaching 200 episodes.
A lot of restaurants. at any time have you had one of those moments where you ate something, and it doesn't have to be something exotic, but you ate something and it's like, oh my God, this is terrible. I just want to spit it out.
No, our fans are the ones that suggest the places we go to. A restaurant is good, but they have a special dish that they're particularly famous for, and we typically are going there for that dish because our fans are like, man, you got to come here and try this dish.
So they're vetted.
Our fans are our vets.
Right.
They're the ones who make the judgment. So we don't go in and say it's our decision to say whether this is the best or not. Our fans say this is the best, and we just say, okay, we want to highlight one of your favorite places. So we don't critique, but yeah, of course, there are some things that I don't go crazy excited about, that other things, that other people don't like. So I go wild for the grasshopper tacos we had 2 days ago because I love stuff like that. It's exciting to me.
Heads on, or did they remove
the whole body with the legs, the heads, everything?
Oh my goodness.
Try it. I'm going to take you out and make you try it.
I'd do it. I'd do it.
So that's one thing where people are like, ooh, I wouldn't touch that. And then there's something else that, I love all kinds of food. But there are other things I don't get as excited that people are like, oh my God, I love that. Like rice pudding. It might be one thing. I'm like, I could live without rice pudding ever again. And someone else listening right now will be saying, I adore rice pudding. So it's horses for courses. Everyone likes certain things.
Sure.
But I do like pretty much everything and anything.
One of the things I was going to say is Elliott's on TV every week, and you can see him there, but I never got more excited, Matt, than going through my social media feed. I've mentioned.
You are huge on this one.
I am a very big Chicago Fire fan, big soccer fan, and this is our club here in Chicago. And all of a sudden one day I'm scrolling through the social media, and what is this? Elliott now is hosting a little talk show segment in a way to get to know the players of the Chicago Fire Soccer Club. How did this come about?
This came about, I'm a soccer fan. I'm originally not from Chicago. I'm sure a lot of people can figure out that accent. I'm originally from the UK. I moved here 12 years ago. And so I wanted my soccer fix. So I went to go and see an MLS match, and Chicago Fire, obviously, and fell in love with the club and the team just through kind of niggling away at a few contacts I had and getting to know some people there and talking to them, and then some new people coming on board and realizing they needed to diversify their kind of like their inroads to their players so people could get to know them. We talked and we said, let's do a trial run of a couple of interviews and see how it goes, and it seems to have been pretty well received.
And you're calling this Fireside Chats, right?
Fireside. I can't take any credit for the name.
You should, though.
Well, okay, that's all me.
There you
go. It is all me. No, that's all to do with the guys over at the Fire. That they concepted the name of the show, and it's just I love soccer, and I love the ability. With my job, I get to do so many cool things and go to so many cool places, and sitting down with professional players and talking about the game, and having a chat with them. It's something great. I really enjoy it. So I get to speak for the fans of the Chicago Fire because I am one as well. I'm not just some guy who's learned the sport 6 minutes ago. I know the players. I know where they've come from. I know their positions. I understand the game to a certain extent. So I think that really benefits me, and it's a lot of fun. It's something that started very small, and who knows what's going to happen in 2020 next year with the team.
That's great,
exciting.
Man. Yeah, living the dream.
I am.
That's great.
Every day.
Back to the title. Actually, Elliott wanted to call the segment "Talking to Soccer Players While Holding a Machete," but they liked Fireside Chats better.
I think the second one works a little better, right? It rolls off the tongue a little more.
So Elliott is going to be sitting in on this entire jaw. He has his top 5 horror films of the decade picked out.
Exciting.
It is Jamie Lee Curtis month, and we like to end our guest interviews with a silly cinema cue. Pat, you got something for Elliott?
It's not super silly, but just wondering, what is your favorite Jamie Lee Curtis film?
Wow. Well, it's Halloween, so I would.
How about other than Halloween, right?
I love Trading Places. I think she's excellent in Trading Places, and that's just an incredible ensemble cast with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy at his peak. It's a great movie. Oh man, she has done so many great movies. A Fish Called Wanda she was superb in that too. I don't know. I would probably have to say Halloween. I know you said something else, so maybe Trading Places.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I will say Trading Places is what gave us her short hair, because in the Halloween movies, correct me if I'm wrong, she had the longer hair, right?
Sure.
And remember in Trading Places, when we first meet her, she's wearing a wig.
Right.
And when she comes back into the apartment, she takes it off, and it's that first time we see Jamie Lee Curtis with the short hair, which basically she went with for the rest of her career.
Yeah. Right. She's flirted with like the perm in the 80s and stuff like that, various hairstyles, but generally, that short pixie cut.
What are your favorite Jamie Lee Curtis movies?
I like all the ones
question.
you mentioned. The only one I would say that I've seen Knives Out, which is coming out. I saw this in Toronto.
Sure. show
Comes
off.
out next month, and it's phenomenal. But I would also mention True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a great one. It's just a fun action film.
You know what I revisited since we've been doing Jamie Lee Curtis month? Actually today, Blue Steel.
Oh, yeah.
It's not. I kind of remembered it as like a throwaway like cop movie. It's actually got a little bit of substance to it.
Who else is in that?
Jeez, man, now you're putting me on the spot. God, I can't remember all the actors' names.
Okay.
Throw it in the fish tank.
We'll throw it in the fish tank. Who's in Blue Steel? Yeah.
I feel like I should know.
Elliott, what is your Twitter handle, or where should we guide the jawheads that want to follow you online?
If I haven't annoyed you with my voice up until now, then they can find me. It's E to the BAM, the letter E, the number 2, THEBAM on Twitter, and Facebook is my full name, which is Elliott Bambrough. And you'll find that, I'm sure, in the printouts on all this if you're reading it. So
For sure.
We'll have links in the show notes.
And Instagram as well. But
Absolutely.
those are my 3 favorite places.
And
to be.
Chicago's Best, like you said, YouTube,
Yep.
Chicago's Best.
It's Chicago's Best TV on everything, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and people can watch our episodes and segments all over the world. We live stream the show, which is, if you can figure it out anywhere else in the world, we're at Chicago. We're in a central time in the US in Chicago at 10 p.m. on Sunday nights. So whatever your time configures to around the world, WGNTV.com/live stream, and you can watch our show live every week if you wanted to.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, right?
WGN's the best, isn't it?
It's awesome. I love working at WGN.
It's totally cool.
It is.
I work with Skilling.
Right.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
One of
Best weather guy there is probably in the world, right?
Fantastic meteorologist.
Good stuff. So Elliott, like I said, is sitting in on this entire jaw. It is jam-packed, Matt.
How about it?
I am pumped.
Me
Let's get
too.
to Eye for an Eye. Talk to me, Pat.
All right, so this week on Eye for an Eye, we're doing Zombieland Doubletap. Columbus, Tallahassee, Wichita, and Little Rock move to the American heartland as they face off against evolved zombies, fellow survivors, and the growing pains of the snarky makeshift family. The film stars Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, Jesse Eisenberg, and Abigail Breslin. It is directed by Ruben Fleischer, who also directed the first Zombieland. His last directed was 2018's Venom.
Ooh, Venom going out on a sour note with that note.
I still have not seen that. I still
Venom?
refuse to see that.
Yeah, boy.
You're not missing much, dude.
Good.
I was super excited, and then I heard the word Venom.
Yeah,
oh, no.
same.
Oh, no. No, let's be honest here. I was a very big fan of the first Zombieland. Had a total blast with it. I would say this is a film that needed no sequel. I would have been happy if nothing ever came out, but I think it also knows that it didn't need a sequel, and they're going to have fun with the fact. I think I saw Bill Murray is back, probably as another cameo. I'm interested. A little nervous, but I'll be there.
Well, he's got to be a zombie, right?
Yes.
Okay. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen the original. I wasn't so huge on the original movie. I'm a big zombie guy, and I've seen better deconstructions of the zombie genre. Shaun of the Dead, for example, is way, way better.
For sure.
But it was fun enough. It was okay. The meme of Woody Harrelson dabbing his tears with the $100 bills because money is meaningless in the zombie world fits in perfectly here. I guess I'm a little interested.
Elliott?
Yeah, if you hadn't mentioned Shaun of the Dead first, I would have said that. Shaun of the Dead is the benchmark by which all comedy, horror, zombie movies will be judged. I thought Zombieland was the first decent stab at that since Shaun of the Dead that actually hit the mark and had original characters that weren't trying to be Shaun of the Dead Mark II.
Sure.
Harrison's great in it. I love his Twinkie obsession. The rest of the cast, Emma Stone and everyone else, I thought was super good and really worked well together. And I adored and loved Murray's cameo towards the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant.
I hope they poke fun at themselves, and I hope it's like a nod to we know this, we're making a sequel and we're all doing this for the money, and they make references to that. But I'm very much interested.
Pat, you excited for this one?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I really liked the first Zombieland, and I do think it's definitely a movie that didn't necessarily need a sequel, but we'll see. And I'm kind of worried that it might seem a little forced, but definitely interested.
For Zombieland Double
Look at that.
Tap.
They've just made $35 already.
Bingo.
That's a hell of a start.
Absolutely. I know we are seeing this one. I know I am, so definitely a review on the next episode
Yeah.
of Cinemajaw. Matt, speaking of new movies, in 2015, over 11 million documents dealing with offshore accounts was leaked online by an unknown source. These papers would come to be known as the Panama Papers. In 2016, it was announced that director Steven Soderbergh would be making a movie on the subject. Later, the likes of Meryl Streep, Gary Oldman, and Antonio Banderas would join the cast. To say we had an awards contender with The Laundromat on our hands was an understatement. However, sometimes what looks good on paper does not come through on screen. Matt Kay and I checked out this latest Netflix film to see if we had a contender or just some movie-hyped fraud.
Think of this as fairy tale that actually happened.
There's confusion over who has to pay.
So they drowned Joe and 20 other innocent people, and somebody's making money from it.
It all goes back to this law firm, Mossack Fonseca.
So what happens next? What do we do next?
All I did was try and send money.
It's a scam that goes from Houston to the West Indies to some bank who knows where.
They're getting away with murder.
Which is bad.
Bad? Yeah, bad is such a big word for being such a small word.
The film opens with a tragedy. A tour boat accident leads to the death of Ellen Martin's husband. Ellen is played by the always amazing Meryl Streep. We flash forward a bit to her expecting to receive insurance money from the accident. However, we come to find out that the tour boat company is having a difficult time reaching the insurance company, who was bought out by another company that has a sister company that owns a company. Well, you get the point. It gets very confusing. And seems like it's a never-ending loop. We are also introduced to Jurgen and Ramon, played by Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas. They're two law firm partners that represent individuals that have offshore companies set up. By doing this, they can avoid taxes and regulations that us working stiffs have to comply by. Oldman and Banderas are not only key characters in the story, but also act as the film's narrator. They break the fourth wall and talk to us through all the finer points of fraud and offshore company benefits. This element is supposed to make the film feel hip while also giving us exposition. However, I felt the exposition they were giving was not deep or intelligent enough. It just sort of skimmed the surface of the whole subject matter. Later, we meet other people who take advantage of offshore companies, and we get a glimpse into their lives and how ruthless they are to keep the way of life they have intact. Because we bounce around between stories here, it was difficult to care much for any of these storylines. In the end, The Laundromat felt shallow. I wanted to learn more about this corruption, or at least be entertained by it. I was not. Matt, was I just a bad student, or did The Laundromat fail on both the entertainment and informative fronts?
The Laundromat failed on both the entertainment and the informative fronts.
Whistleblower! Whistleblower!
This is not this year's Moneyball or what was The Big Short, which I felt was actually a pretty good movie about a very boring subject, which is the U.S. financial crisis. The most interesting thing about the Panama Papers, the story, is the hacker, this John Doe who released everything. This element comes in at the very end. They make a sort of inference into who it could have been, but it's obviously meant to just be sort of a metaphor. It's
right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not based on any type of truth, exactly.
Right. I did find that makeup job very
Me too.
convincing, and it fooled me.
Oh, it fooled me 100% as well.
But that just speaks to the actor involved and the talent thereof.
Exactly. But you're right. I mean, that wasn't much of a twist. And that's really, the twist is just for, I guess, like
That's
a fun
another fourth
element
wall.
at the end. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's when that character breaks the fourth wall. I agree with you. Hated that whole narrative thing. It came across almost like a bad stage play. The writing is terrible. The different storylines are completely disjointed. They never really tie together in any satisfactory way whatsoever. Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas, as much as I love these guys, and Streep, wasted in this.
Now, I was out at Toronto International Film Festival, and was actually on the red carpet. And just listen to the first clip that I have here, which was actually from the writer Jake Bernstein, who wrote the book Secrecy World Inside the Panama Papers, which this movie is based on. And listen to his response when asked, you know, what is it about the movie being able to tell the story that what's different than in the book?
I mean, someone summed it up. When the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists did this investigation, I think it ended up being like 350 journalists from around the world, 80 countries. You know, we dropped it, and it was in newspapers and on television everywhere, and everybody heard about it. But it's complex. It's a dense topic. It's easy for people's eyes to glaze over. And someone who saw the movie recently said, "I finally now understand the Panama Papers." And so that is just, I mean, it's hugely gratifying because we all worked so hard because we thought this topic was really important. It's something that affects everybody, and a lot of people don't realize that. You know, there's trillions of dollars flowing through this underground offshore system, a lot of it illegal cash. And so it's important that people understand it and make the connections, and I think this movie really allows us to do it, and it's super entertaining while that happens, so it's good.
So Matt, I ask you, did you learn more about the Panama Papers? Do you understand it?
I mean, listen,
after watching this movie, because I don't. I didn't learn anything.
No, I'm not a legal expert. I don't understand how offshore, company shell game kind of thing works. The movie explains it well enough that I got the plot and understood what was going on, kind of. But they don't really make a plot. I mean, it's like we're doing bad things. We don't know who our customers are. They could be gangsters, and then some of them turn out to be gangsters,
and maybe that's the truth, but it's not all that compelling of a story because it's just sort of blah and all over the place.
Blah and all over the place. Yes.
One other interview I did want to play, which I thought was, if there was one of those storylines that was my favorite part, at least entertainment wise, had to deal with this family where the father of his daughter has a friend that he's having an affair with. And you see how he just wants to give an entire company of his, one of these offshore companies, to his daughter as basically hush money, not to say anything to their mom that he's having an affair.
Which was, by the way, completely gross and repugnant.
It was so bizarre. But the actor who plays him is Nanzo Anzui. I hope I'm probably butchering his last name for sure. But we asked what it was like to work with this amazing cast.
Amazing. I mean, when I graduated from drama school a long time ago now, but Meryl Streep, Gary Oldman, Antonio Banderas, they were all on, the cinema. And to think that I'd get to work with all of them in one movie is it's ridiculous, but it's happened. And to work with Steven Soderbergh and my castmates, Nikki Muka-Bird, who played my wife. I think it's just an amazing experience, and it's almost like weird did it actually happen. And, the film is there as evidence, but it was an amazing experience.
I congratulate him. Actually, I do agree with you that he did a pretty good job. One of the more interesting characters in the film. Obviously, people have a lot of respect for this director. The cast involved is stellar. It just didn't come together.
I agree.
It's sad. I still have respect for them. This hasn't diminished it, but I don't think this will be a project we point to in the future.
Do you have a movie poster quote for us, Matt?
You'd be more entertained going to an actual laundromat and watching clothes dry.
Wow. That's a good one, Matt.
Thanks.
Wow. I went with the laundromat comes up a few cents short. Where did those cents go? No one knows.
Extra Tide Pods, maybe?
How many Jaws?
1.
I went 1.5 Jaws.
I think you're being generous.
And wow, I mean, when you're talking about this cast and
it's amazing.
The subject matter, you think they could have knocked it out of the park, but
hey, man.
So no Laundromat 2 then?
Hey, you never know.
Yeah. Crossover maybe with Zombieland.
The attack of the dryer sheets.
That would have been better.
Yeah.
Yes, it is playing in limited release now and comes out at the end of this month on Netflix. Once you see it, Jawheads, please let us know what you think. Write us feedback@cinemajaw.com. Not a horror film.
No.
But.
Sounds horrible.
It was horrible, yeah.
Wasn't the best of watches, yes. That is our topic this week, though, as we near the end of the decade. And I think, I'm going to go on record now and think it is one of the better years for horror.
This year?
No, the decade.
The decade.
The decade.
One of the better decades for horror in general?
Yes. How do you guys feel on this?
Blasphemer. You.
I mean, when
Is
you
he possessed?
I know how Elliott feels because he was just talking about how he loves the 70s and the 80s.
Maybe it's because I have a hard time with, like I said, with some of the eking in of the hereditaries of this world.
Oh,
that
boy.
I just, and don't even get me started on Midsummer.
Oh, boy.
Oof.
Yeah. Hang on. God, if both of those are on your list, then I am leaving, boys.
Wow.
I
There could
thought-
be fisticuffs. Hey, Pat,
I've got a
Get
machete.
security.
I don't need
get security
fisticuffs.
now, Pat. So here we are. This is going to be a fun discussion,
Oh, yes,
Jawheads.
yes.
Elliott's going to get us kicked off here with his number 5 pick. These are, now keep in mind, these are our 5 best horror films of the decade.
Right.
So we're talking top tier stuff. Elliott, what do you got sitting at number 5?
I have a film at number 5 that did more in 90 minutes than Midsummer did in nearly 2.5 hours to actually make me feel terrified to go abroad, to not know the language, and like I'm actually feeling like my life depends on worrying about these people. 2017, The Ritual. Have you guys seen that?
I have
haven't.
seen The Ritual.
Based on the novel by Adam Neville, group of old friends, one of whom dies. They take one last trip together. All their issues come out, boil over the surface as they get lost in the woods, and they find themselves in the middle of a medieval foreign ritual for which they don't understand the language, losing their minds, losing their bearings, losing their senses. Did everything the ritual could not do to me. And it actually felt like something that was terrifying could actually happen, whereas Midsummer just felt like, why don't you guys just get in that damn van that's sitting there the whole time and just drive off? Stop taking mushrooms and leave.
Yes, The Ritual, I'll say this, it played at the Chicago International Film Festival, and that's where I had caught it at. And that snuck up on me on how good of a film that was.
it's great.
Smaller movie, you got to seek it out, but throw it in the fish tank there, Pat, if it's streaming somewhere, because I think it's on one of the services.
I'd go see it. Hell
I
yeah.
think, I think it might
really
be on
good.
Netflix
Yeah,
right
so
now.
Check it out. I do recommend that one.
It's great.
Not on my top 5, but that's a great pick. Forgot about that one.
Okay, you're allowed to be wrong.
I hope our lists are completely different. In fact, I actually listed 20 films.
What?
Yeah. So
Yeah, I had troubles as well. Like
Yeah.
5 kills me for everything.
5 kills me on this particular topic. And if we cross over, I might call some audibles. But Elliott, man, I'm sorry. Ari Aster belongs on this list. He is a brilliant new voice in horror.
I'm right with Matt on this.
He's a brilliant new voice, but he's just not a brilliant new voice in horror.
I get what you're saying. I don't know if I completely agree. He has more than just horror, but you cannot argue with the fact that the end of Hereditary, when she's sawing her own head off, is a horror scene. And I don't like Hereditary as much. I think it kind of is too derivative of Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, and all the things that it apes, especially in that third act. But leading up to it, that sense of dread. And Midsommar, I think, was he finally just knocked it right out of the park. It's so beautiful. I almost want to go back to it. It was just such a beautiful picture. And the sense of dread and creepiness that slowly builds up, it left me feeling disgusting. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about that movie.
It just reminded me I needed to go back to IKEA at some point and replace some of the furniture that's broken in my place.
That too. I mean, who doesn't love a trip to IKEA, though?
So is
Many
number
people. 5
Midsommar for you?
Number 5 is Midsommar for me, yeah.
Wow.
I want to say it's a beautiful movie.
Sure.
I think he's a talented filmmaker. It looks gorgeous. Some of those shots, those sweeping shots, the symmetry of some of those shots as well. Gorgeous landscape, well made. It didn't scare me in the slight. Like horror needs to not scare me. I don't mean like a guy jumping out of a closet with a knife. Horror does need to be psychological as well, but it didn't have that psychological edge to me. It didn't make me feel uncomfortable.
And well, see, this is what's interesting. I remember I reviewed this one on Cinemajaw before you had a chance to see it.
I caught up with
in
it,
that
yeah.
review, I remember saying different things scare different people, and not a lot. Maybe some people aren't going to be scared by Midsommar. I was terrified myself. That kind of idea of somewhat losing control in the environment that they were presented in scares the hell out of me. It really does. Like being drugged and not wanting to be, in that phase of mind that they're in. Oh, creepy.
It had the opportunity, I think, to really go to some good places. It clearly had the budget to do a lot of things it could have done, but it just didn't do it for me.
So you're not in for the 4-hour-long director's cut that's floating around out there?
Wow, now you're talking about horror. Maybe that would make it to number 1 purely for the fact that I'd have to sit through an extra 2 hours of it.
The torture.
Wow, we are off to a start here. I don't know where Elliott's going to fit in on this one, but I think this is more along the lines of Elliott approval than, taking a machete to my neck.
Yeah, you better watch out.
Yeah. This one came out in 2014. It's directed by David Robert Mitchell. The film is entitled It Follows.
Love this movie.
On your top 5?
It was one of those ones in like the top 10 or 11,
Okay.
and I kept on putting it on and taking it off. Incredible. That's
There we
fear,
go.
and that is what everything Midsummer is not. Again.
So just listening to Elliott, I figured we got to my number 5, I think this is going to be in that Camp Elliott right here. And the film opens up with this just spectacular and terrifying shot of a girl running out of her house with what we can tell the viewer as like an invisible force following her. And she's just running around this neighborhood trying to get away from what we don't know. So it can take the form of anybody. And this form walks when it takes the form of whoever it is. But that little twist on it makes the entire movie, because the person who quote unquote is infected and this force is going after is the only person who can see this person walking. So at times when they're with friends, if the person's there or not,
Right.
but they may be freaked out by just someone walking down the street at first, even though that person's just literally walking
Normal.
down the street.
Yeah.
And so that was just fun.
Yeah.
And it was thrilling. And then, yes, this whole idea of having this basically a parallel going on of, an STD, unprotected sex. It's transmitted by sexual intercourse. But I pulled a quote from the director who says that when he was making it, that he wasn't personally interested in where it comes from. And to me, it's like a dream logic in the sense that it's a nightmare. And when you're in a nightmare, there's no solving that nightmare. So he didn't look at it necessarily like he clearly went out to make that.
Right.
But it definitely was what most critics and most audience members picked up on right away.
Yeah, it's an incredibly well made movie. The pacing of it's really good. That sense of paranoia where you're not sure if you're just losing your mind. The subject isn't sure whether they're losing their mind, someone's legitimately following them, or what's happening, because it never really reveals itself. You don't know if it's just the kids who are scared of what might be like old wives' tales or folklore when you have sex and you unprotected sex. It's a brilliant movie. It's so creepy.
This is without even getting into the finer details of how cool the score is. It was like a synthesizer score and like a throwback to the old 80s slashers. Great one. Check out It Follows. Sure.
I need to catch up with it.
Into our 4s we go.
Yeah, what have I got sitting at number 4? I am particularly hard on anthologies, and I have not seen too many great anthologies recently since like the old Creep shows. Asylum was one from the 70s from Hammer Horror in the UK. That had like people like Peter Cushing and stuff in it. Great anthology films. I saw one recently, excluding VHS, which I thought was pretty well done.
That's where I thought you were going to go.
So did I.
I'm going to Southbound. It's a 2016 movie, kind of flew under the radar a little bit, has 5 stories, and this is where it really got me. 5 stories that interlock into each other via a vignette piece that plays in the middle that hooks them all together and makes you realize the stories are all interconnected. Often with the anthologies, they give like a topic to a bunch of different great directors and they take them off in weird tangents, and it's like one's about one thing, one's about something completely different from the same name or the same subject matter. Southbound really, really hits home and is a fun anthology where if you're in the mood to watch a bunch of horrors, you've seen a long movie and you're like, I need something to break it up and just have some fun little quippy stories. Southbound is one that brings lots of different fun stories together with an overriding arching theme, and it's really well made.
I'm excited. Can we throw that one into the fish tank to see if it's streaming there, Patrick? As I just wrote it down in my journal, I keep track of all these ones I need to catch up with.
It's by Radio Silence and Brad Miska.
Nice.
Yeah, good.
I'm excited for this one.
How long are each of the segments?
Oh man, I think from memory they range from like 12 to 15 to 20 minutes tops. I think.
I like
Nice.
it.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Nice.
It's easily digestible.
Yeah.
That swings it back to me. I really hope Elliott approves of this one.
I am not the stand-up. Actually, I am the stand-up bear for all horror.
I learned a new name last year.
That machete is intimidating, Elliott.
It's only because it's shined and polished. It's
Well,
clean.
it's the blood dripping off it that's kind of got me nervous.
Oh, that's where it's been resting on my leg.
Okay. I learned a new name last year, Panos Cosmatos, who I was not familiar with, made my favorite film of 2018. Talk about a score, just the darkest, a synth-heavy, like, goth rock score.
Mandy?
Yes, we're at Mandy.
I loved Mandy.
Full gonzo Nicolas Cage. Here's the thing about horror. Horror has to have some sort of iconic image. Like we have that image of Leatherface with the chainsaw, you know, Freddy with the glove up, or even like Evil Dead, one of the zombies' faces in black and white. And Mandy has that in this beautiful shot of Nick Cage absolutely covered in blood in the car, just smiling at the camera. It's such a weird face he's making.
And it really leaves you with a nightmare.
Don't forget the Cheddar Goblin as well. Cheddar Goblin's a good face from that too. I loved Mandy. I think when I spoke to you guys, Mandy was in my top 10 films from last year. I absolutely adored it. I think one of the reasons is because Nicolas Cage says like 3 words in the entire film, which is always a good sign for a Nicolas Cage movie.
They're crazy fucking evil, man.
Yeah, but it's just a thrill ride. What a fun ride. But
yeah.
Someone, and it might have been you guys, it might have even been Ray, said to me, "Is it really horror though? Is that really a horror movie?" And I'm like, I don't know. I think it might be like horror adventure or horror fantasy in some aspect, but it was
fantasy. I like.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Actually,
Yeah.
it's not a straight up horror movie. It feels more like the Sam Raimi, early Sam Raimi stuff, and of that I would say more like Evil Dead 2 or even Army of Darkness.
Oh, now you're getting to my kind of. I love Raimi. I mean those Evil Dead movies are just like so incredible.
Yeah. Imagine the Evil Dead movies if they took themselves a little bit more serious, but at the same time were like completely more gonzo, and that's kind of what Mandy is.
It's such a great movie.
It is.
It really is.
Great pick, Matt. I knew it had to be on your list.
Yeah.
If it topped your best of.
It could have been higher.
end
This
list.
was a really difficult list.
So my number 4, a film I think I had on when we were talking about like underrated horror films back a few years ago. And this one came out in 2014. It's a German film. But still, to this day, even looking at the box, I'm a little freaked out by it. It is entitled Goodnight Mommy.
Oh, yeah.
Those creepy twins.
Yes.
Yeah.
The story here, for the jawheads that don't know, is a mother returns home to twin sons, and she had just had reconstructive surgery on her face. She has these bandages all over that you would expect. Well, it turns out that the boys, who are those kind of twins that just like to talk amongst themselves and not necessarily out to the adults, are always whispering to each other and talking to each other, and you get the idea that they do not believe that this woman in their house is their mother anymore, or it was an imposter that came in. And so they start to actually, in a way, torture the mother. And the movie actually has a really nice twist.
Oh, it's a great twist.
That I don't think anybody would see coming. And when you think about the twist, it's something that, I mean, there's a lot of thought brought into it, and it's one of those twists where you see it, and then everything else you like to think about what transpired the last hour and a half leading up to that twist. It's like, oh my goodness, what a good movie.
There's like double level horror in that movie. First off is thinking that the boys are trying to figure out whether their mother is actually some kind of demonic demon who's been put in their house. And then after the twist, the horror is knowing what you now know and going, oh my God, and unraveling everything backwards and going, oh, all of this could have been avoided. Oh no, if we'd have just known that, or if something would have happened from the beginning.
Yep.
Such a great movie.
It is. I can't recommend it enough. Goodnight Mommy. It's awesome.
Have you seen that one?
No.
Oh, dude.
I know.
You've got an incredible Halloween coming up this year for yourself.
I
You're
agree.
a very lucky man. Does that mean I'm on to my number 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
My number 3. I don't often pick up Turkish films. It's not often high on my list for horror. If I don't go US or UK, I normally head over to Asia because they've been making some great movies. However, I discovered a film from 2015 called Baskin, which is crazy insane. If I've never seen any Turkish horror films before, I want to see more like this. It's a kind of surreal, trippy journey into hell. It's about a group of Turkish police officers. They're off duty. They're having dinner together. They're celebrating with family and friends. And then they answer this distress call from an abandoned building. And they go out and try and answer it and find out what's going on there. And they just go into this nightmarish, torturous, bizarre, like I said, trippy nightmare that's going on, which they appear that they can't get out, and they found like a path to hell, and they are going straight to it. It was based on a 2013 short film of the same name by the director, who I will also butcher his name, Can Evernol, and it's extremely gory. It's very graphic. And it's one of the most original horror films I've seen in the last decade. You guys should definitely check it out.
Filling up my queue here.
I know. This is exciting too because I've been keeping a list. I just asked friends, for suggestions, stuff that I've missed, and got a bunch of horror films that I've been catching up with already this month. So I'm going to watch both these for sure.
Swings it back to me. And in making this list, I think I actually learned something about myself because horror is such a big genre, actually. It's tough to just paint it all with one brush. I found that, I do like the brutal stuff. I like the psychological stuff. And I certainly like the slasher. But horror comedy is, I think, my favorite. And if you look at the past 10 years, there's a few that you could play with here. But I think the best horror comedy is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
It's an incredible movie.
It is. And I really struggled with exactly where to fit this in. And I almost took it off the list because it's not a scary movie at all. But it's gory. It definitely has some fun with the genre. And it's clever. That's where I think its genius lies. It's just how smart it is. It's all a big misunderstanding. There's a script flip. But then at the end, there's more to it. There's a bit of a plot. I guess it's kind of weak. It's mostly about the relationship of Tucker and Dale and how they're mistaken. Their identities are mistaken by this group of teenagers who are going to camp in the woods, and hilarity ensues. And it's just so funny to see that from the other perspective for a change.
I loved it. I mean, this was I forgot the name of the title for when I was talking about earlier when we were talking about Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland, but that was another one that I watched. And you're right, it's one of those movies where if your partner or if your friends aren't big into horror and you need something for everyone to be able to enjoy, or it's a little bit of something for everyone, it is hilarious and it's legitimately funny as well.
Oh,
the gags
very
are funny.
funny.
It's not just like someone like losing a head. It's like, oh, she lost her head, and like, oh, that's funny. There's some really good gags in there.
For sure, right.
I have not seen this one, and I know
You
it's
gotta
come up
catch
a
up.
few times, so I will have to finally watch this one and let you know what I think because you're a big fan, Matt. I'm sorry, Elliot, but my number three,
Here we go.
also an Ari Aster film, and it is 2018's Hereditary. We talked about this one on the podcast. I think it made my top 10 that year. Let's start it with Toni Collette. Whenever do we get a performance like that in a horror film, that caliber? Absolutely excellent. And I still, to this day, get a little freaked out when certain images of the film pop up into my mind. If I see someone stick their head out of a car window, I'm instantly freaked out. And that doesn't happen for all movies for me. But there's something about that, a few moments in that movie that just stuck with me. A lot of people don't like the ending. It maybe goes a little too haywire for people and a little bit too spelled out. I was along for the ride. I got exactly what I wanted out of Hereditary. I was a huge fan.
That's all I'm going to add.
I've
said all I need to say about Hereditary.
I do think the third act, not the third act, really it's the last 10 minutes. It just completely, all the dread he sets up. But I don't know why you don't like this movie because
it doesn't dread me. That's why. Nothing builds up. Like the daughter getting her head crushed in by the
it's completely
the
lopped
pole.
off. Yeah.
I mean that was terrifying. But when the stone brother just goes back in the house afterwards, I couldn't help but laugh because it was like a comedy, like a slapstick. Like, oh, she lost her head. Oh, I'm gonna go to bed, hide on the covers, and hope that no one notices.
Shock. He's in shock.
I know
dude.
he is, but I found it funny, a bit like Midsummer. Some of the bits where I'm supposed to be like uncomfortable, I couldn't help but laugh. Like, is that bit supposed to be funny? It didn't push it for me. I love my art house movies. I love independent movies, but I just don't think right now the art and horror have found a happy place to meet in where everyone can be satisfied because some of it just doesn't translate to me as a terrifying build-up. It just doesn't. Whereas It follows the exact carefully planned positions of terror for me where I'm like, I feel their terror. I feel for these kids. I am terrified for what's going to happen next.
It's interesting.
I don't know. Hereditary did it for me.
Good.
I was in.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Go see the sequel.
I liked it except for the very last minute.
All right, into our twos we go. What do you got sitting there, Elliot?
Oh, my goodness. We're into twos. We've been through a bunch of different horror films here. We've been through the art house, and you guys clearly both like Hereditary, which I'm totally cool with. Just don't invite me over when you've got it on DVD.
It didn't make my top 5.
Okay, good for you. We've been through some great foreign language horror movies. Sometimes I just want to be disgusted, revolted, feeling slightly queasy and nauseous. this film popped up. If it's one that acting you're looking for, turn over. If it's one for directing you're looking for, do not even bother for half a second. It's from 2016. It's called Terrifier. It is about a clown that will make Pennywise look like Mr. Rogers. This guy is revolting, disgusting, as is shown with a young lady who he ties upside down. Watch the movie, you know what I'm talking about. He is a clown who just basically goes around drilling holes in people's heads, pulling their eyes out, chopping their arms off, ripping them in two. It is lacking storyline.
Just like any other clown, right? I mean,
like Pennywise, but like with no redeeming features or qualities, not even any funny punchlines. Terrifier is just gore for the sake of it, and I am there for the ride, and I want to take the ride a second time and a third time. It is the film I tell people if they're into horror and they want to get a big hit, I'm like, watch Terrifier, man. You don't have to think about it, but you will go, bravo for that exploding head. That's one of the best exploding heads I've ever seen. It is disgusting.
better than Scanners?
Better than Scanners by virtue of the fact when Cronenberg did that movie, the special effects were limited.
Yeah.
Terrifier is clearly done on a budget, but with today's vision of how things can be done on a budget. And my God, it is. I didn't even write down the name of the clown. I can't remember what the name of the clown is.
Let's throw it in the fish tank. The name of the clown in Terrifier.
It's gaining a cult following. It's becoming like one of those classic like midnight movie like showings because it's just so grotesque.
How do you feel about the like some of the trauma movies? Are you into it?
I enjoyed some.
Good.
I mean, I love Tuck Avenger and I love some of the class of '84 and all that kind of stuff.
Did you see Poultrygeist?
I did not see Poultrygeist.
That one's another like just disgusting gore
Yeah.
for the sake of gore.
And I love that. You know, I love to think about my heart. I like Rosemary's Baby, and you know, I do enjoy. I want to hammer this up. I do enjoy movies like Hereditary and stuff, and like you know, it follows. I like that suspenseful thing. I like sometimes not knowing what's there and having to guess what's there. But I also do sometimes enjoy the drill through the eye because that's what horror fans enjoy.
Same.
And Terrifier is that movie with the clown thrown in to do it because hell, why not? A clown should kill you.
It's awesome.
I agree. All right. I'm actually curious about your take on this one because you didn't like the more art housey picks, and this one is kind of one of those. But I actually think it's this my number one and number two. You could have switched around. The Witch. Just gonna come right out and say it. Jennifer Kent.
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it for the art value. This one did. You know what? This one did actually make me feel a little bit uncomfortable with the daughter's transition. Are we allowed to give away spoilers? I don't care. With the daughter's transition into actually being the witch, it was unsettling, and it gave me those same kind of goosebumps as when I saw in a Blair Witch Project when you see the guy standing facing the corner and the camera drops. It gave me that same kind of like, oh shit. That's terrifying. It was good. Some of someone who's originally from England, some of the language was a little bit difficult to follow at times.
Oh sure, yeah.
But that was
she
great.
went for it though. She went for that full on accurate period piece. Black Phillip the goat.
Oh yeah,
was one of my favorite characters from the last decade. I would say it's just this is what Hereditary could have been. This is the ending.
There were a lot of comparisons, especially with that ending.
Yeah.
What year did you have the year The Witch came out?
It's like 2012 or something.
It's recent. Yeah, throw it in the fish tank.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I want to say it was like 2-3 years right before Hereditary. So that ending seemed very much
fresh.
Like, this is what Hereditary tried to do, but didn't quite nail as good as The Witch did.
It didn't. Yeah, The Witch literally rises up at the end, and it's just such a, like, almost you're rooting for the bad guys, even though you've just seen this horror transpire, on this family. It's just a great, bleak, fantastic movie.
I'm with you on that one. Great pick. One I've only seen when we reviewed it. I've seen it once in the theater, and that's been it. So one maybe I should watch before Halloween.
For sure.
My number two could be anybody's number one. Probably is Matt number one. These are two popular picks. We're doing our best of the decade.
Oh, man.
So no surprise picks. I'm not going art house here. My 2017 was right up near the top on my list that year of best movies. I am speaking of Jordan Peele. I think at this point, masterpiece, Get Out. Nobody's number one?
No,
It's not my top 5.
it's
Now,
not in my top.
I
five.
know when you're saying horror films, we can be going like the way you were just talking about gore, scare. But when you're talking about Get Out in this particular instance, I'm really looking at the cultural impact of Get Out and the crossover of horror into the social conversation that it presented. I mean, a film in this genre hasn't exploded this way and started such a conversation as Get Out has in many, many years, if ever, to be absolutely honest.
I liked Get Out.
I enjoyed it. I preferred Us more. I thought Us was a little bit more interesting and had a nice little twist to it. But I thought, again, I don't see Get Out as a horror movie at all. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't see Jordan Peele as a skit comedic like character actor anymore. I was like, holy shit, this guy makes incredible movies, and I was moved by it, and psychologically. And the directing and the way it was portrayed and acted, I thought it was a superb movie.
Yeah,
I
I
liked
agree.
it.
Yeah, and like I say, just it's sort of social commentary, a film that won't sink into the floor.
It's on my top 20. It just did not crack into the top 5 here.
My number 2, Get Out. I thought maybe it might have been someone's number 1, but this is...
You thought wrong, right?
Yeah, this is it. Our number 1 film. Not a lot of crossover, if
None.
at all.
I don't
None.
think we've had single. Have
I
we had a
agree.
single
I know.
crossover?
That's
Not
pretty
yet.
insane. I
Look
was
at that.
worried about that. Our number 1 picks, Elliot. What do you got? Number 1
All right,
horror
a
film of the
movie,
decade.
I'm hoping that I'm going to strike 5 for 5 here and have another movie that you guys, either one or both of you, have not heard of. But I'm a big, as we discussed, old school horror head. I like my classics. I get a little bit excited when anything John Carpenter happens.
Oh, yes.
He's one of the masters of horror up there with Wes Craven. John Carpenter does things to me in all different genres that no one else can. Everything from Big Trouble in Little China through to Escape from New York. The man can do no wrong in my eyes. So when I discovered this film from 2016, I thought to myself, someone equally loves Carpenter as much as I do, if not more. It had the synth score. It had the crazy demonic characters. It had those elements and homage to 80s movies that only someone who really loved Carpenter could really know about and understand, and also put through into film and make it look good. 2016's The Void. It is an incredible film about people who get locked together in a hospital with some demonic forces and hooded creatures coming for them in an end-of-the-world kind of setting. And inside this hospital is a gateway to hell and a monster they have to destroy in order to save the earth and stop everything from ending. I tell you, if you love Carpenter, if you love Carpenter's 80s work, if you enjoy the fact that he writes his own soundtracks to The Thing, and Halloween and all those kind of movies, you will enjoy The Void, and you'll be like, why was this movie not better known? Why is John Carpenter's name not at the top of this movie? Because it's certainly made by him. It's a fun ride with all the 80s nuances that you want, and you're like, my God, this film just fits within that genre, and you'll embrace it if you love 80s horror.
Wow.
I do love 80s horror.
And I don't know this one. I have not heard this one talked about. So
when
I'm pumped.
Rye said earlier that this was one of the best decades for horror, I just was like, 80s.
Yeah, right? I mean, I had to...
Hello.
Maybe that's why, psychologically I veered towards a movie that reminds me of the 80s, because, there is a crossing point right now, and I think horror's going to go... It's going to splinter off, and I think you're going to get your Saw movie crowd one way, and I think you're going to get your Hereditary crowd going the other way, and I don't know if the twain are ever going to meet again. I think there's going to be a splinter in a lot of horror
That's
dynamics.
interesting. I think they will, because we all agree on The Exorcist, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the scariest films. Still one of the scariest films of all time.
Sure. So I think no matter what, horror fans can unite around certain things, even if we have different little factions.
Okay. We digress.
Your
We do
number one
digress.
pick, man.
I wanted to sort of milk my number one here. This is, and I got it wrong. Robert Eggers actually directed my number 2 pick, The Witch.
Right.
I had said Jennifer Kent, which was a bit of a foreshadowing.
Oh, I see. Yeah, good thing you corrected that.
Yeah, I'm glad I corrected that, because number 1, Jennifer Kent's film debut was this just brilliant horror film that gave us this new pop culture boogeyman, The Babadook.
I enjoyed that lots.
It absolutely terrified me. And the thing that I think was scariest about the movie is that it showed a side of motherhood that we all suspect exists. Even moms out there suspect that it exists, or maybe they feel at times guilty of this disconnection from their own child. And it's shown in such an honest and straightforward way. She's trying so hard to find that love and connection and just not quite getting it. And at the same time, they're sort of beset by this boogeyman type character, the Babadook, who appears in this book. And it's just so creepy, the imagery of the Babadook. And he starts to haunt their dreams and come in more and more. I loved it. I loved the language of this movie, the visuals. Where it ends up was pretty satisfying. It's hard to end horror movies, isn't it? But this one had a pretty damn good one.
Yeah, I think if you end on a happy note, then you've given up, and if if you end on a sad note, or
if everyone's just
everyone
dead,
just dies,
yeah.
that's kind of almost to be expected. That's like the Disney version of horror movies. It's like everyone dies at the end. It's like
Right.
That was a great film.
No, they need to be left in lingering agony for the rest of their lives. So, and that's
a great
achieved
pick.
here.
And what I like about this is I just brought this up to you when we were texting back and forth. I bought this, played at the Chicago International Film Festival.
Right,
another
we
one.
went together.
And I bought tickets for this. Matt's birthday is in October. Remember? And I said, I think you're really going to like this movie. He doesn't want to go. Hum and hawing.
I did not. That's not
and
true.
And then he goes, and he absolutely loves the movie. So
it's
good
my number
pick.
one of the past 10
Good
years,
pick.
guys.
My number one, very heavy hitter. You could probably make an argument that this film launched the biggest horror franchise of the decade. Not positive on that, but I don't know my franchises that well when it comes to horror. But in 2013, I went and I saw this movie, and I remember thinking it wasn't going to scare me. These movies never do. But boy, it got me in every way. And I am speaking of James Wan's The Conjuring.
Oh, I love that movie.
At number one, huh?
It's sort of old school
It
in the
is.
sense of, you got this old exorcism going on, right? But the haunted house, you got the Warrens, who
Oh yes.
Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson play. And these are paranormal investigators who went to the Amityville Horror. They've made their name, and now they get called to this farmhouse where a family of 5 are saying that the house is haunted. Weird stuff is going on. And you get part of it like an investigation into it, but you get that old school exorcism at the end. And there's a lot of just the imagery is pretty freaky. I think the setting of it being in, I think it's like the 1970s that it's set in, is creepy. There's no cell phones. There's no technology. Just loved every minute of it. And I think Patrick Wilson at this point found his calling, that he was going to be a great horror actor, because he's in this new one on Netflix. I don't know if you saw it, In the Tall Grass.
I've seen that movie. I saw it already.
And
It's
I wasn't
pretty
even,
good.
I watched it, and I thought, well, I'm not even going to watch it. But then when I saw Patrick Wilson was in it, well, worth a spin if this guy's in it. But The Conjuring, which spawned now the Annabelle franchises, The Nun. I'm not speaking for anything of that. I thought Conjuring 2 was decent, but the first Conjuring scared the hell out of me. I was all in on it.
You got physically sick, you said.
I remember. I said it almost made me throw up in the theater, because I was scared, and then there was a throw up scene on during like the exorcism, and I remember I almost barfed in the theater. So that's a sign of a good movie.
And the other part of that, I agree with you with everything. I think The Conjuring went back to old school, but it had new twists. I also like the stamp of like where you expect something to happen, a scare to happen, but one does a really good thing where he leads you down one path, and you wait for like the cabinet to close to see the reflection in the mirror, and he purposely doesn't do it because he takes the nod to the horror fan and says, I know that you're expecting a jump there. I'm not going to do that. You're just going to wait around the corner like a real horror scare should as well. And the second thing I love about that movie, any good horror film that has a character like Ed and Lorraine Warren and says, based on a true story, terrifies most people because it's like, this happened?
So well said.
Like the beginning of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Based on a true story.
And Amityville Horror.
Works. That works. I agree. Those were our picks for our top 5 films of the decade. As Matt mentioned, as Elliott mentioned, and as I've mentioned, we all have a lot of honorable mentions. So what we're going to do is only name one honorable mention.
You bastard.
That's not fair.
And for our Patreons, we are doing an extra where we're just going to have an extra 5-minute segment for them to hear our honorable mentions.
Oh, okay. I guess that's fair.
What one honorable mention would you mention, Elliot?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
That's
Just one.
That's
Here we go.
That's like what child do I save?
I'll start with mine. Sinister with Ethan Hawke came out in 2012.
That's great.
Where he is the writer of true crime stories that likes to move into the house where the true crime took place. I've watched it a few times, worked both times I saw it. Fun thriller, horror elements, weird, got a nice twist at it. I recommend Sinister. Matt, one honorable.
I would go with Annihilation. Just
not a horror movie.
Really?
Sci-fi
Nice,
at
yeah.
best. What do you got, Elliot?
Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods
Nice.
is a great pick,
Well
man.
mentioned.
I remember renting that and thinking this is gonna be a piece of crap. I don't want to really watch it. And I was like, oh my God, bravo! That was almost another one of those like genre redefining moments where it was like the twists and the comedy and then other elements thrown in. I was really impressed. I was really blown away by how good that movie turned out. Really, really well crafted. Good layers.
I agree.
I agree. We'll list some more for our Patreons, Matt. So what we're going to do is take a break, and when we come back, Elliot is taking Matt on in Zombieland cast movie trivia, plus a look at some Hollywood headlines. Stick with us, Jawheads.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go.
In honor of Jamie Lee Curtis Month, we bring you this snippet of an interview she did with Collider about the legacy of the Laurie Strode character.
Well, I mean, it's funny. The ass-kicking part is the fan favorite part, but from my standpoint, I didn't go into it because I got to kick Michael's bottom. I was particularly drawn because it was a movie about trauma and about what happens. You know, we have horror movies that are horrific, and we have these horrific events that take place, but we leave the movie theater and then we complain that the dishwasher doesn't work. You know, the trauma that occurs for these characters. For 40 years, I felt was very important that David understood that and was really giving Laurie great honor to acknowledge that her experience of her life was very challenged. Yeah. And then kick his ass. You know what I mean?
The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all...
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Elliott Bambrough from Chicago's Best.
And his machete.
Being sort of our horror episode here, as we just talked about our favorite horror films of the decade. Scariest thing that's ever happened on Chicago's Best.
Scariest thing, really? You want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were shooting at a bar called McGill's, which is no longer there, and we were doing what we call MOS, which is Man on the Street, which is where we talk to people about why they like the place. I think it was anyway, and we're sitting down at these stools near the bar. The bar was behind us, so the cameraman was in front of me, and someone was when we film, like, some people don't have camera awareness, and they like walk into a shot, or they just walk past you, or they even walk in front of you, and it's kind of funny. And we were sitting down talking. Actually, no, it was with the owner of the bar. She was sitting down talking with me about the bar, and there was someone that behind my chair, like trying to squeeze past me, push past me, and kept on like nudging at the chair. And I was like trying to talk to her and ignore it and just carry on and be a professional. And I looked at my cameraman and I just said, I was like, dude, I'm sorry, I can't anymore. Like, is this person going to get past me at any point? He was like, what are you talking about? There's no one standing behind you.
What?
Yeah. And the place, they said afterwards, oh yeah, our place is haunted. Ooh. And there was someone pushing behind me, not like really shoving me, but you know that like at a bar when someone's like slightly drunk and they like keep on bumping into you and you're like, dude,
sure,
you've got like 3 feet in front of you. It was one of those, and I was like, there's a drunk person behind me trying to get on camera and being silly and drunk and talking too loud.
That's terrifying.
There's no one there.
Did you watch the footage and stuff?
Yeah, you can see my reaction. Mate, I'll try and find it and send it to you guys. You can see my reaction where we're sitting there talking, and you can see my face. Like, first of all, do the go from laughing to being annoyed to like, I'm trying to work here. Why, like, looking at my camera and go, man, like, is that person gonna get past us? And then him say like, there's no one behind you, and then you can see like the color like just quickly fade from my face, and I'm like, what? That's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me on the show.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I literally pulled that out. This wasn't pre-rehearsed at all. I literally just pulled that out.
That was a
and
good
we
question.
We had a good story behind it.
Good answer.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, for the Jawheads that want to follow you online, best place to do so is?
Best place to do so is mostwanted.com. No, I'm just kidding. Best place to do so is E to the BAM, letter E, number 2, THEBAM on Twitter and Instagram, my full name on Facebook, and also my show, Chicago's Best TV, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever other websites I can think of that we aren't actually on. But we're on everywhere. We're a food show. We're there to serve your palate.
Love it.
Yeah, do it, everybody.
Absolutely.
Please do.
Before we get to trivia and before we get to Hollywood headlines, we threw a bunch of items into the fish tank. Let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means local brassy sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
All right, guys. So the first item in the fish tank was who is in Blue Steel. So, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis. Aside from her, there's also Ron Silver, Clancy Brown, Elizabeth Pena, and Louise Fletcher.
Clancy Brown, pre-Shawshank. It's a good role for him.
All right.
And Louise Fletcher was Nurse Ratched, I believe.
Really?
Ron Silver was creepy as hell in that movie, too. He's the one who finds the gun, isn't he? And he's like, oh, I've got a gun here. And it takes about an hour for him to figure out, of the movie, for him to figure out what he wants to go and do with that gun.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the second question was, is The Ritual on streaming? And it actually is available on Netflix.
Yes.
Go watch it.
Recommend that one.
Don't watch Midsummer. Watch The Ritual. It's what Midsummer could be.
Watch both.
Just
You
watch The Ritual.
You could watch both.
And another streaming question was, is Southbound on streaming? And it actually is available on Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google Play, Vudu, iTunes, and Hulu.
Wow.
So lots of options there.
Everyone should watch Southbound. It's a fun anthology.
This will probably, I'm not even joking about this, will probably be my horror pick tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Just go watch it tonight.
No. This is a late night. We're recording. Tomorrow, it'll go down.
All right.
Next question was name of the clown in Terrifier, and his name was Art the Clown.
There we go.
It's a little, as clown names go, that one's a little lackluster.
Honestly,
But it could be a little creepy.
Yeah, I remember his name less than I do his actual habits of killing people. Like, I just refer to him as the clown who is repulsive. And yeah, that's right. His name is Art the Clown. Everyone has to get past the first 10 minutes. If you can survive the first 10, it's like the passage to enter the doors of heaven. You have to go through a test, and the test is the first 10 minutes of the worst acting in a pizza joint you've ever seen. And past that, it's gore galore.
I'm in.
There we go. Anything else in there?
Yes. The last question was the release date for The Witch, and it was at Sundance in 2015. And then got its theatrical release in February of 2016. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was a little longer ago than I thought. But
Yeah.
it's
Great
good.
movie, though. That's everything?
Yep.
Jump back in there, Pat.
Will do.
All right, Matt. A lot of times we do Cinemajaw, but lately we've been doing Hollywood headlines. And
Yeah, this
I know,
is good. This is fun.
I know anytime Martin Scorsese makes a comment, it's going to make some Hollywood headlines. What do we got going on this week, Pat?
So, yeah, Martin Scorsese did actually have some comments. He weighed in on what cinema is by saying this about Marvel films. He said, "I don't see them. I tried, but that's not cinema. Honestly, the closest I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks."
Wow. Marvel.
Ouch.
Theme parks, not cinema, is the key takeaway here.
Right. That's bullshit. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Hey, obviously,
Okay.
we butt heads here, and I'm not nearly as big of a fan as the Marvel fan that you are. I see where he's coming from, and he has an opinion. And for instance, as long as we've been doing this, I never have a Marvel film on my top 10. It's never like, wow, that was a movie that I'm going to remember. That's how I do feel about them. Are they fun to go?
Black
popcorn
Panther
movie?
wasn't on your top 10?
No.
Okay.
yes, they're fun, and I could get have an enjoyment with them to a degree. But I at least see where Scorsese's coming from. He has his own opinion.
I agree with him. I agree.
You totally agree. I know this of you.
I enjoy a Marvel movie. It's fun and exciting, but I do not want the next generation of filmmakers to watch Iron Man 3 before they watch Citizen Kane. I want them to learn how to tell stories and how to make movies without just throwing some CGI out and grabbing from a comic book. I love them, but I agree with him. It's fun, but it's not cinematic. This man tells stories. This man has made some of the greatest films of any generation, and I don't think I want to disagree with a man whose body of work is what it is when he says that it's just like going to a theme park.
Well, he may have made some of the best movies, but I have been making the Best Movies podcast for the past decade, and I will go right ahead and disagree with him. First of all, this is a clear case of old man yelling at something new, right?
Okay.
Old man fears new thing. This could be like a headline in The Onion. It's so cliche. It's ridiculous.
He's still making new things, though.
That fair. Listen, I love Martin Scorsese. I think he's absolutely genius, but he's dead wrong here. You can't dismiss it just because you don't like it. Art is subjective. You can't say it's not art, it's not cinema, and you can't even say it's not cinematic. First of all, that's bonkers. The visuals they put on the screen are absolutely cinematic. That may be its biggest strength. Honestly, I mean, to say it's not cinema, it's like a Jackson Pollock painting. And this is I'm stealing this analogy from something I saw another critic say, but it's just a perfect analogy to say that that's not art, which a lot of people do, and I think they're dead wrong. It is art. It's just the art is foreign to you. You don't get it. You don't like it. That's fine because art is subjective. You cannot say it's not cinema. It is cinema.
Okay, but how about this at least? And since we have a guy who does a food show, analogy for food. There's a friend of mine who is talking best burgers. Everybody loves to do best burgers conversation every once in a while. And he brings up a burger and he's like, well, how does it compare to? And he mentions like a fast food place, right? And I'm like, well, yes, they're both burgers technically, but I'm talking about like a specialty place that's a one-off doing just incredible stuff. These are two different things. And I think
but is it a burger?
But is it a burger? Yes, it's a burger, but
yes,
it's two different things. So I think that's where Scorsese's coming from
But that's not what he said. He didn't say it's cinema that I don't care for and I find it trite. He said it's not cinema, and that's what I find offensive.
But there's a lot of people out there that I think are not realizing all of the classics, realizing all that goes into cinema as a whole, and they're just becoming these guys that are watching Marvel and thinking like, oh, this should win all the awards, and this.
Nobody
only
thinks
Marvel.
that.
Yes, there are fanboys out there, and I think he's saying, hey, it's great, but it's on this level, and there's all other kinds of cinema going on that predates it, and you should see.
I love Scorsese, guys, but he's just so foot and mouth on this. It's sad.
I just like to see Matt still defending his Marvel as attacks come up.
Yeah, and your argument doesn't hold any water whatsoever with the burgers thing.
Yeah, no, I think it does.
No, I think it does, because I think in one section here you got mass-produced, just churning out burger after burger after burger, and this other side you have someone who's spent hours developing, going to test, trying, going to other places, other countries, taking in information, taking in their expertise, desperately trying to put out one thing that just sums up what a burger is to them, and this other place is still churning out cheeseburger after cheeseburger.
You say this mass producing, like the same amount, if not more, work goes into these Marvel films, okay? And they have genuine story threads with heartfelt emotion. Here's a perfect example that ties right in with Martin Scorsese's Joker and how closely tied to him that project is. You can't just dismiss it because it's a comic book movie.
But Joker's not just a not just a comic
book
movie.
He's Batman's arch nemesis.
But I mean, there's not a wall-to-wall CGI model machine.
So that's the problem with
CGI. I think half the problem is the CGI thing. Honestly, I really do, because it's covering up, I think from his point of view, and I can appreciate this, the hours he spends getting a shot, the hours he spends in development of getting the right light for something, and then there's these other guys, and this is cliche and wrong, I know, and it's not true, but the other thing is like, oh crap it, we'll just throw some CGI graphics into that thing. It's like the fixing it in post thing with TV. It doesn't just fix it in post. It takes hours and hours and hours, and I get that, but at the same time, in history, I don't think Iron Man 3 or Avengers Endgame is going to be uttered in the same breath as movies like Apocalypse Now, as movies like I don't know. You know, the classics are there because you can see the graft that have gone into putting in shots. You can see the developments. And I mentioned Citizen Kane. That shot when they pan through the window and go through the window for the first time, and everyone was like, how in the hell did they do that? That wasn't CGI. That wasn't just a computer-generated, like, passing through a computer-generated world and computer-generated rain. These are real, like, craftsmanship and ideals and principles have been put into putting a movie together, as opposed to we'll just throw some CGI at it. That I think that's probably the crux of the story and the crux of the argument here.
I don't want to belabor this.
No, I like Elliott's points there, and just to tap onto that too.
Oh man, I'm getting ganged up here.
Is the idea that, and I've said this, my complaint is that we give them way too much leeway in their storytelling, and when it wants to be serious, it's serious. But when the example I went to last year, when a bomb drops on Ant-Man, it doesn't kill him. When they want to communicate, they could just communicate.
He shrunk down at the last second. They explained that.
Whenever they need the plot device for that they can't communicate, there's something in there just because they needed
like a fail-safe.
Right. There's when I'm watching, I'm like, well, yeah. If you really broke down the movies like a Goodfellas or something that you're really watching so crafted, you'd be like, yeah, it just doesn't hold up. But because the way we're going into it and it's such an event film, we're not looking for those things. Most people don't care about it. Mm-hmm. And so we just let it fly. But it's like, well, you can't be that
it's
serious.
It's called suspension of disbelief, and it's in Scorsese's films as well.
I'm not saying there isn't, but it just bends too far with the
But
Marvel
is it
movies.
cinema, guys? That's the question.
It is,
well, Martin said no.
It is. Well, yeah, it is cinema, but
right. We do have one more Hollywood
cinema.
headline. One more Hollywood headline.
All right.
All right, guys. The second Hollywood headline is Sony may sell the Masters of the Universe movie to Netflix. And even if they don't do that, a reboot of the franchise does sound like it is going to happen one way or another.
Elliot, were you a He-Man fan? Be honest with me.
I loved He-Man.
So did I.
I thought it was the coolest thing. I had a couple of the toys. I loved Skeletor. I loved Man-at-Arms. I loved Battle Axe. It was so damn cool. Do I give a damn that they're about to sell anything to anyone or reboot it? And no, I don't care anymore. I love the cheesy 80s that was purely made to sell toys.
I don't think this franchise could go to the big screen.
It did.
It did. Dolph Lundgren.
I know.
Oh my God, the best He-Man ever because he's the only one.
Let's not forget Frank Langella
Correction
as
of that statement.
Skeletor.
Correction of that statement. I don't think it could go to the big screen nowadays. As a full reboot with a studio behind it, I just don't think it would sell. So maybe if they are going to do it right to home, either Amazon Prime or a Netflix, maybe it could work. But
yeah, I'm not that moved by this. I like me some He-Man. I had all the toys as well and lots of fun, but yeah. Whatever.
I think we've seen the reboot of the 80s characters with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I don't feel like that's resonated with kids anymore. They're like, what? Ninja kicking turtles to eat pizza?
Yeah, that
whatever.
Forget it.
Yeah. Scorsese says no.
Yeah, there's a new Marvel film I'll go see.
All the kids are like, what does Martin Scorsese say about it, though?
All right, that wraps up our Hollywood headlines and brings us to the trivia segment here, Matt. We like to go out on a fun note here. Elliot, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt K go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on any question, you get one trip for Pick Me Up Pat into the fish tank. Again, because of Zombieland Doubletap, we're playing Zombieland cast movie trivia. What do you want to do here, Elliot?
I'm going to defer to Pat. What do you think I should do, buddy? Do you think I should go first or second?
I would go first if I were you.
Thank you very much, my friend. You're the best producer they've ever had. I'm going to go first against Matt K.
Question one over to Elliot. Zombieland trivia. Here we go. Woody Harrelson had a role in the Hunger Games franchise. Which actress played the lead, Katniss Everdeen, in those films?
The very lovely Jennifer Lawrence.
1-0. Pat led you on a good way here.
Love you, Pat.
Yep.
You're the man.
Question 2 over to Matt K. Matt, Emma Stone starred with Olivia Colman and Rachel Weisz in this comedy film that came out just last year. Name it.
Wow.
I'm stumped as well. I'm not even like, oh my God, I should have gone second. I know this.
Emma Stone.
Uh-huh.
Olivia Colman, who actually won Best Actress at the Oscars for this movie. Rachel Weisz.
The favorite.
The favorite.
I wouldn't have called. I wouldn't say that's a comedy.
It's a comedy. It's 100%.
Is it a horror
off
comedy?
on his genres today.
Yeah. Is it 100% comedy,
Yes,
guys?
it was a comedy.
I'm not going to use Google while we're doing trivia, but I'm going to look that one up later.
Okay. 1-1. Question 3 back over to Elliott. Elliott, one of Jesse Eisenberg's early films was The Squid and the Whale. Which actor played his father in the film?
Martin Scorsese. I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
Incorrect. Wonderful film, The Squid and the Whale. Jesse Eisenberg. Who played his father in the film?
It's the other guy in Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, you just gave it to me. Why did you do that?
Because it's to me
oh,
now.
Yeah, but it doesn't bounce back, does it?
No.
Well, if I no, it doesn't. Right. It's oh man, it's not Bill Pullman. It's not Jeff Daniels. Is it Jeff Daniels? Jeff Daniels. That's what I'm going with.
It is Jeff Daniels. I thought he was going to blow it there.
I would have loved to have seen Bill Pullman in Dumb and Dumber. What a terrible
well,
film
it's
that
just
would
mixing
have
up
been.
the names, but
Right.
yes, yeah.
2-1, Matt, and question 4 is over to him. Matt, Abigail Breslin starred as Olive in Little Miss Sunshine. Who played her father in that film?
Greg Kinnear.
Yes.
3-1, Matt.
Steppenwolf's own.
Is
right?
that 3-1 already?
Yes, 3-1.
Oh my God.
Question 5 over.
This is the worst producer you've ever had.
Question 5 over to Elliott. Elliott, Abigail Breslin has made one movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It came out in 2015. Name it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's been in movies again?
This was after his governorship. Yes. After he was governor.
Got to be a Terminator movie,
He
surely.
made a movie with Abigail Breslin.
He did?
Yes.
Was it Little Miss Sunshine 2?
It was a smaller movie. I'll give you that hint without you going into the fish tank for a clue.
Oh my God. Can I go into the fish tank?
I
for
mean,
a
if
clue?
you want to.
Because I feel like if I fall more behind than 3-1, then I'm pretty much screwed. I'm gonna swallow all the water in the fish tank right now, I think.
Wow,
I'm
we go
jumping
into the
in.
fish tank.
I
Pick
can't
me up,
swim.
Pat. Pat, what was the name of that Abigail Breslin Arnold Schwarzenegger film?
All right, so your clue for this one is it's a one-word title and it's a female name.
I need to get out more and see more movies.
That's literally all I knew. I'm like, it's a one-word title. It's a female's name.
This narrows it down. How many female names are there in is it an English name? Is it a Spanish name? Is it Latin? Oh my goodness.
Pat has a clueless look on his face. He's new to the game. He doesn't know if he's supposed to help the guest any more than he has.
Abigail Breslin, Arnold Schwarzenegger. How did I not laugh about this movie at any point?
Yeah, it's a zombie movie. I can tell you that.
Yep.
It is?
It is. It's a zombie movie.
Oh my God. I'm wasting everyone's time right now. I have no idea.
Incorrect. Matt, you got to
Dude,
guess
I
here.
can't think of it either. That's literally all I knew. It's a girl's name. It's Abigail Breslin's character's name. She plays his daughter who gets bitten by a zombie. And
What?
Yeah, it's actually not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's not like Sarah. Definitely not Mandy. Sarah. What the hell is it?
So close. Maggie.
Maggie.
We're
Maggie?
looking for.
Damn.
Wow.
Couldn't think
it's
of it.
worth a spin. It actually is. Yep.
It really is.
It's still 3-1. Question 6 over to Matt K. Matt, name the 2016 coming-of-age movie that starred Haley Steinfeld as an awkward teen and Woody Harrelson as one of her high school teachers.
We jump right in the fish tank here.
Wow.
I have no clue.
Pick me up, Pat. Name that 2016 Haley Steinfeld Woody Harrelson movie.
So your clue for this one is almost 18.
the things that pop into my mind when somebody says that, not what you're thinking, pop into my mind.
Zombies.
Almost 18.
This is not a zombie movie.
Almost legal, barely legal, barely legal. I don't know. What?
Almost legal.
What? We still got a chance for a
Jesus.
steal
Is this
here.
another one of subscription questions?
Right?
We still
I
got a
couldn't
chance for
avoid
a
it.
steal. Elliot, any guess on this? You got Haley Steinfeld, Woody Harrelson. The clue is almost 18.
Is Arnold Schwarzenegger in this one too? Because I have no idea. Was I in a coma for a couple of weeks? What the hell's going on
You
here?
did miss a good one there. Oh, Maggie's check it out.
Okay. Is this Maggie Goes to School?
Coming of age.
The Edge of 17.
Oh.
The Edge of 17.
Oh, okay.
Boo.
All right.
Boo.
Whatever.
All right. Here it is. 3-1, Matt. Question 7. There's 2 questions left. Elliot needs them both.
I have to get this one.
Elliot,
right. Okay.
name the 2012 comedy that starred Jesse Eisenberg, Tracy Morgan, and Melissa Leo. It was about a piano prodigy and his family issues.
Who writes these questions?
I don't know.
Why would you think we would know that?
Wow. I mean, well, I thought Jesse Eisenberg, Tracy Morgan. Who wouldn't see this movie? And you throw in Melissa Leo.
Well, I mean, how many movies has Tracy Morgan done? That's the real question.
2, and this is the other one I haven't seen, along with the other one I haven't seen, which was about the school teachers, and I can't remember the title of that movie either.
Pat, what was the clue for this one? Throw it in there. I don't really think this will help him.
The clue for this one is now. This clue will have you asking why, so I will stop here.
The clue's almost more confusing than the question.
Yeah. Are
You're
you okay
welcome.
with your emphasis on certain words?
Yes.
I know that's part of the clue, but it just led me off down a different path, and I
Well,
have
it's
no idea
great.
where I am right now.
Good.
I love it. That was awesome.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Thank you.
Matt, guess?
So now, yeah, I don't know.
Why stop now? Why stop now?
When
Good
did you
emphasis on
stop?
that.
Because I've never heard of this film before.
Never heard of it.
Last question of the game. Matt, name the 2008 movie
It doesn't matter.
that starred Anna Faris, Emma Stone, and Colin Hanks. It was about a Playboy bunny
I know
that's
this
kicked
one.
out of the mansion and must find work elsewhere.
It's a great movie, and she remembers people's names. Like she'll say, what's your name? You'll say Matt, and she'll go, Matt.
Do you got a guess here, Matt?
It's a really funny film, actually. It's really funny.
I have no idea, so I'll pass this one to Elliot. I don't know.
I realize I can't remember the title of the film. It's called the bunny mother, the bunny.
It's got house in the title.
The house bunny.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will give that one to him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
That's
Does
how
she really
remem-
do that?
Yeah, because she can't remember people's names, and when she's like, "Oh, hi, what's your name?" and say like, "My name's Ben," and go, "Hi, Ben." There's some funny bits in it. That's
how she remembers it.
That's by doing a really deep voice. Anna Faris is very good. In
She's
that.
great. She's
I like her.
overall. I always like her.
I loved all the scary movies that she did as well. She was very funny in those.
This one ends with a win for Matt, 3-2. A handshake here, gentlemen.
Thank you. Well played.
If it came down to
Well
a tie
done,
or
well
a
done.
jawbreaker, this question would have been over to Elliot. Elliot, better Woody Harrelson movie, Kingpin or Natural Born Killers?
Oh man, that's a really bad question to ask.
That's the jawbreaker.
And who's making the decision? You?
Martin Scorsese.
Martin
Yes.
Scorsese?
Yep. He gets to decide what is in his.
Honestly, it depends what day of the week is, but I would say Natural Born Killers. No,
It's-
you're
it's
wrong.
Kingpin.
No, it's not. You're
Mar-
wrong.
Marty just texted me. It's Kingpin. Sorry.
What?
He's. Yeah.
All right.
Natural Born Killers is Oh my God, what an
Off the
incredible
hook.
film.
Yeah. The
I
re-
agree with you, for the record.
The real jawbreaker was this. Age of Tracy Morgan closest to.
Oh my
Matt, you
God.
gotta guess on Tracy Morgan.
Tracy
Your
Morgan.
age guessing is ridiculously bad. Go for it.
No, it's really
Is
good.
it improved recently?
Yes.
Did you take a course over the holidays?
No, I seem to do pretty well at it.
Okay, you go for it.
Okay, Tracy Morgan was. When did
he die?
No, he's still alive. I'm just trying to think of his past roles.
He has not expired.
I think he's mid-50s. I'm going to say he is 54.
Locked him in at 54. Elliot, you got to guess?
Well, I could be a dick and say 53, but I'm going to go like 48.
We'll still give that to Elliot. 50 years old for
50?
Tracy Morgan. Yeah. Turns 51 November 10th.
Huh.
So.
Well, it depends when you listen to this. If you listen to this after November, can we record a second one where after November 10th that you say, "What on Matt? You got that one. You got the tiebreaker."
Well, I was just trying to figure out when was he on Saturday Night Live? Do the math that way. you know?
Right. Your math's terrible then.
Yeah, usually
it's worse than mine.
And then you get confused, Matt.
So with the additional questions, I tied it up.
Yeah, we can call
All right,
it a
it's a tie. Fantastic. Thank you. Well
done.
played.
Well done.
Brings us to the end of a great job. First and foremost, we got to thank Elliot for coming back on. This has been a total blast.
You have to thank me, otherwise I won't come back. So I appreciate that. Guys, I love hanging out with you guys. It's super fun. It really is.
Do you want to come back and do horror again?
I would love to come back and do horror again, Matt.
Book them down for next
All right.
October. This has been a blast. We also got to thank our producer, our engineer, our editor over there, the guy in the fish tank, producer Pat.
Thanks, guys. That was a great time.
Man, a few words there.
Yeah. Don't sound so convincing.
Is he going to come back for a third week? That should
We have
really
no
be the to be
idea.
continued.
We sure hope so.
Well,
Matt,
unless there's no clowns in there,
Matt, we also
Wow.
got to thank the sponsors.
Yes, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get great sponsors like them.
If you would like to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast.
And while you're at it, click subscribe. One extra button helps us out quite a bit.
Until next week, I'm Ryan, the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt K,
And
keep on jawing about the movies.